Just to make it clear right off the bat, the reason I'm using the term manifestation isn't because I'm actually going to be talking about some woo-woo magic stuff. The reason I use the term manifestation is because it's probably the most popular one when I'm talking about this topic. And the reason it's so popular and the reason it actually does work isn't because of some magical creation of something out of nothing. It's because of a very simple scientific and biological mechanism that we all have in our brains, which I'm going to talk about in this video. And like the whole thing about manifestation as well, the whole thing behind it is that it's not even like it does work. It is a real thing, but it's not some crazy magic. It's just the natural way. It's just learning to use our brains in the way that they were intended to be used. This is something I talk about in way more detail and explain like in a way longer video in my course that you can find a link in the description. So basically, the way that our bodies work is, or the way that our brains work is they kind of work like goal-striving mechanisms, right? If you wanted to, for example, pick up a pencil, right, to kind of explain it, you have two parts of your brain, the conscious and the unconscious. The conscious is what gives the command, and the unconscious is that kind of success mechanism, goal-striving mechanism, which actually does the thing. When you want to pick up a pen, you set the goal with your conscious mind, and the unconscious mechanism deals with it. Because if we didn't have the unconscious mechanism, you wouldn't be able to actually lift up the pen. Because when you are lifting up the pen, you're not over here thinking like, okay, so I'm gonna so I'm gonna specifically use the muscle of my tricep to extend my hand, then I'm gonna use these specific muscles and bones and tendons in my fingers in order to grab it in this exact way, and then I'm gonna use this much power to lift it up to this point. None of this is your conscious mind. The whole process of picking up a pencil, the whole process of you walking or riding a bicycle or anything is that unconscious part of your brain. The only thing that the conscious part does is it sets the goal. I want to lift up the pencil, so the unconscious mechanism lifts up the pencil, right? Now, the way the manifestation uses this to its advantage to create, like, to achieve really big goals for you is it utilizes that same exact mechanism except on a way bigger scale. What people is we all probably know at this point how manifestation works is like you really start visualizing really deeply yourself achieving something. Maybe it's like you driving like a Lamborghini, and in like a few years you find yourself driving the Lamborghini. What this whole process actually is, to put in scientific terms, which this is something that like if you really want to go more in depth, just either again check out my course or read the book Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. That's where like the whole explanation comes from. That's where I learned this from. What happens is you just set the goal with your conscious mind by using visualizations to drive the Lambo, and then you let your unconscious mechanism steer you towards that goal. And when you let your mechanism in your brain take care of everything, that's when you really function at peak performance. Because again, the conscious part of our brains is only meant to set the goal. A good example is, for example, imagine you're in a social situation, right? When are you the most social and when is it easiest to talk? When you turn off your conscious mind and you just say whatever comes to your mind first. You instantly get conversation topics, you're charismatic, you're interesting. It's a great conversation. But what happens when you're around an attractive girl, probably, or when you're speaking on stage? You get really scared. You tense up, you're not relaxed anymore, and now you try using your conscious mind to talk. At the moment you start doing that, now you become awkward, no conversation topics pop in your head, you speak like a robot, you lose all your charisma. That's because you're trying to use the conscious part of our brains, which is the goal setting part, as the action, like the action part, as the action mechanism. But it's not used for doing the thing, it's used for just setting the goal and letting the job be done by the unconscious part of our brains. So how you use specifically manifestation, or these visualizations, this success mechanism as it's called in Psycho-Cybernetics, the book, is you set yourself the goal. So if we're talking about being social here, right, you want to manifest a social life, you just spend half an hour per day, 10 minutes to half an hour for best results. You lay down in your bed or sit in a chair, you fully physically relax, and you start imagining in as much detail as possible yourself living, acting, and enjoying the social life that you would like to have. So maybe you close your eyes and you, sorry, I'm sick right now, and that's why I'm coughing. You imagine yourself, let's say, at a party, and you're speaking to tons of people, you're speaking to girls, you're meeting people, you're at the center of attention, you're in a flow state, you're, really enjoying the party, everyone is enjoying your company, you're getting respect from guys, you're getting attraction from girls. You really vividly visualize and imagine this scenario in as much detail, this is the important part, in as much detail as possible, to the point where you imagine how the clothes feel on your body, how the floor feels, like the pressure of you standing on the floor, how maybe you get tired from the dancing, how the music impacts like your ears. You imagine it is in as much detail as possible. And after doing it enough times, when the situation does arise that you're at the party and you're in that exact same situation that you've been mentally rehearsing in your mind, you instinctively will just act in that way because you've trained it enough with your conscious mind that now the moment you get in that situation, your conscious will kind of turn off as long as you let it. Of course, you gotta be relaxed for this. That's why when you're visualizing, you learn to also relax yourself. You let the unconscious mind take over, and because you mentally practiced it, now you're just being really social and you're living the exact life, manifesting the exact life that you want to have. A really important part of this as well is learning to let go of the results. What this means is if you, for example, go to the party and you're really worried about whether or not you're going to be social just like you imagined yourself being, you visualize yourself, you're not going to be able to do it. Because again, that stressing, that worrying about whether or not you're going to be social is what's going to force you to use your conscious mind again because you're going to be really scared and again tensed up, you're not going to be relaxed, you're going to be worried about the end result, so your conscious mind is going to take over and you're going to fail. What you need to do is you need to completely just trust the mechanism, trust that part of your brain, that success mechanism, and just let it do its thing. Be present, be in the present moment, let go of the results, just be like, whatever the results are, I'm fine with them, and you will find that that is exactly what you will get the absolute best results and achieve all of the goals that you set for yourself. That is, in essence, how manifestation works and what manifestation is. I made other videos on my channel, which you can check out, where I talk more in depth about this topic and how the whole mechanism works, so you can check that out. And before finishing the video, I just want to tell you that if you really want to improve your communication skills way faster, you don't want to spend hundreds of hours of watching content and reading books and not being sure what to do or what steps to take. If you really want the exact steps, step-by-step plan laid out, the most important information taught to you, and if you want it all in the most compact, quickest, and best way possible, check out my course by clicking on the first link in the description, and that is by far the best way to improve your communication skills in the quickest and easiest way ever. At least that's my opinion, because I've spent the last 3.5 years mastering this art, mastering this skill, and all of my knowledge is in that course. So check it out. If you found this video helpful, I think you'll find a lot of value in this video right here. Click the subscribe button and do the work.